get some analysis now on this from Antony Loewenstein. He joins me live from Sydney. He's an Israel affairs analyst and the author of several books, including The Palestine Laboratory and My Israel Question. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us on the program. I want to get your initial thoughts on Ben-Gvir's visit to the compound and why we didn't see the skirmishes that we expected to see with him making this visit.
Sadly, this visit is expected, as your previous correspondent in East Jerusalem said, because Ben-Gvir has promised to visit, and many of Netanyahu's government had determined to visit. And of course, their grand vision, in fact, is a provocation. You know, we talk about often that certain moves by the Israeli government is a provocation against Palestinians. That's the point. That's exactly what the point is here. The point is to inflame tension. The point is to make Palestinians, Hamas, whoever it may be, angry. And Israel feels, when I say Israel, the current new Israeli Netanyahu-led government believes that provocations is what actually will lead Israel to achieve its goals, which namely is complete annexation of the West Bank. So, I mean, why haven't Palestinians protested? Look, it only happened a few hours ago. It's early days, and maybe they won't protest after this particular visit. But this will set a pattern. And history in the last couple of decades has shown that often when Israeli ministers from Ariel Sharon and others visit the Temple Mount in a deliberately provocative way, it can often lead rightly to many Muslims, not just in Israel-Palestine, but also around the Muslim Arab world, to get incredibly angry.
Right, it's been a deadly year for Palestinians. And with the mindset that you just kind of outlined for us of the current leading government in Israel, how is this going to affect Palestinians moving forward?
Well, I think it's going to confirm to them what they feared all along, which is that the new Israeli government is going to be more extreme than the last. I mean, I think it's worth noting, though, that I think some in the Western media somehow believe that Israel was a thriving democracy before the new government. Israel has been a military dictatorship in the occupied territories for decades. This new government undeniably is much more far-right, more racist, more determined to often eliminate Palestinians. And in fact, certain members of the Israeli government, including Ben-Gvir himself and other senior members of the government, have talked often about not just expelling people, but potentially forcibly removing them, which I might add is an international crime against humanity. So, you know, the only way this is going to change really is international pressure. And it was depressing, though unsurprising, to see last week when Netanyahu was sworn in as new prime minister that senior members of the Biden administration and the EU tweeted support for Netanyahu, support for the Israeli government, talked about sharing democratic values. There is a profound disconnect between the reality on the ground, which is growing annexation and apartheid, and somehow this diluted belief in some of the Western elites and media, I might add, that this is somehow going to just be business as usual when it clearly is not.
We also kind of felt that at the UN most recently, where they passed a resolution on the recent violence in Palestine. The resolution did pass, but we did see very prominent countries abstain from voting. How is this going to change the course of this conflict, or is it going to change the course of this conflict at all?
Well, certainly that recent UN move is an attempt to get the International Criminal Court to determine whether the occupation is illegal under international law, and the short answer is to them, yes, it is. Now, does that change anything on the ground when and if they make that decision, which may happen this year or next? I don't know. I think ultimately, as I said, without serious international pressure, sanctions, boycotts, things along those lines, this will not change. Much of the Western powers, the powers that matter, the US, the EU, and frankly, much of the Arab world, are very happy with the current Israeli government. They might not say that publicly, but the truth is for them, as I talk about in my forthcoming book, The Palestine Laboratory, for those countries, for them, it is about getting Israeli technology, Israeli surveillance, Israeli phone hacking tools, weapons. That is Israel's so-called trump card. So until there is a shift, public opinion shifts or major pressure or boycotts, the situation is only going to worsen for Palestinians on the ground there.
All right, Israel affairs analyst Antony Loewenstein, thank you so much for joining us here on the NewsHour.